We are coming on the air with some of the really fast-moving developments on that TikTok ban in just the last couple of minutes. Sources are telling our team that the Biden administration essentially will not enforce it. They will not fine any company that lets TikTok stay on the app stores come Sunday. They're going to basically push any decision off to the president-elect, Donald Trump, to figure out. All that playing out as we've just learned that tomorrow the Supreme Court will drop rulings. Will there be a decision or at least a pause button on this ban? We've got it all breaking down coming up in just a minute. We've also got the other headlines this morning, including live in Jerusalem, a potentially ominous sign. Israel's prime minister delaying a vote on this ceasefire deal with Hamas to tomorrow at the earliest. A lot of worries that those cheers from 24 hours ago may be short-lived as Palestinian and hostage lives are in the balance. Then we'll take you to the ground in California with a new threat for the people devastated by those wildfires. How landslides are adding yet another dimension to this crisis. Plus, why searches for oligarchs are spiking after President Biden's goodbye address to the nation. And coming up this hour, the historic rocket launch we will show you live on our air. SpaceX set to play what's basically a game of catch, shooting a mega rocket into orbit, then landing it back on the launch pad in about an hour. Why this latest step in the space race matters for the future of space travel. You're going to watch that live coming up a little bit later on in the show. Hey, I'm Hallie, and we're going to get to that TikTok news in just a second. But we're starting with those new strikes overseas overnight in Gaza and the new worries that the fragile ceasefire deal between Israel and Hamas may fall apart before it even begins. That's after a delay on voting on this deal by the Israeli cabinet, which is now set to meet tomorrow after the country's prime minister says without any evidence that Hamas is creating a last-minute crisis. A senior government official says the holdup is related to some new demands by Hamas related to Palestinians held in prison by Israel. Hamas is now accusing Benjamin Netanyahu of trying to back out of this deal as members of his government threaten to leave. Remember, every second without a ceasefire puts more lives at risk, more time for hostages spent away from the families who desperately want them home. Hostages like these two Americans, Sagid Dekohen and Keith Siegel. And more Gazans killed by Israeli airstrikes. More than 80 reported dead overnight by the health ministry, with terrifying stories that we're hearing, like one of a young boy who dug himself out of the rubble with his own hands. His aunt, his uncle, and baby sister all killed in that strike. Richard Engel is live for us in Jerusalem. And Richard, you have called this an ominous sign for the deal. That's what you've written, I know, in our blog. There are some political realities here that Benjamin Netanyahu has to manage, has to handle to try to get this whole thing across the finish line. All of it underscores just how fragile this whole thing actually is, considering this is where we are on Thursday here in the United States, days before this ceasefire was even supposed to go into effect at all.
Ominous because there are already disputes, already accusations, even before the ceasefire has begun. This is a multi-phase ceasefire deal that is supposed to take place first initially with a 42-day pause in the fighting, which 33 hostages are supposed to be released, followed by a second phase still to be negotiated in which the remaining hostages, including military-age males, Israeli soldiers, presumably the third American hostage would take place. And then a third phase, the reconstruction of Gaza. While this is taking place, Israeli troops are supposed to be pulling back. Israel is supposed to be releasing hundreds of Palestinian prisoners. Yes, as you said, it appears that the dispute was over who gets to decide which Palestinian prisoners are released. Does Israel have the power to veto and say no to specific individuals? So if it is this difficult, even before it begins, what is it going to mean once it does begin? But so far, we are hearing from Israeli officials that the Israeli government is going to meet tomorrow instead of today, that the ceasefire agreement is likely to be ratified, and that it will likely begin on Sunday. If it gets how far it gets beyond that, however, is an open question. And Hallie, just a short while ago, I was in Tel Aviv, and I was speaking to the brother of a hostage who is in Gaza right now. He is not expected to be released in the first stage because he is a young man considered potentially a soldier by Hamas. And He does not believe this is a good deal. He supports it nonetheless, but he says he's very nervous about the deal because it takes so long, because it's so fragile, because it is already fraying before it begins. We also spoke with a woman in Gaza. She is responsible for 24 displaced children. She's living in a tent. Says she has no access to food, medicine, water, that she can't hold on much longer, that there's bombings all around her, even now. And according to a senior health official we spoke to, more than 100 Palestinians have been killed just since that ceasefire deal was announced yesterday. So there are very ominous signs about where this is going. But it does seem at this stage what we're hearing is that it is going to go forward and at least begin on Sunday.
That is the tone that you are hearing, Richard, from the Biden administration as they're in their last, 4 or 5 days here, as well as incoming Trump administration officials as well. Let me play it.
I am confident, and I fully expect that implementation will begin, as we said, on Sunday.
We are still very optimistic. Everybody wants this deal to happen because essentially those people will die.
You talk about things, if it does move forward, it will begin on Sunday. Obviously, Richard, on Monday, there will be a new president of the United States who is sworn in, and that adds another dynamic to all of this as well.
Well, a profound dynamic, and I think that is one that is weighing heavily on the minds of Israelis and on Palestinians. It certainly had an impact on these negotiations. The ceasefire deal that is likely to be ratified by Israel officially tomorrow is very similar to the one that President Biden put forward in May. That deal this deal was based on the original deal, and negotiators say quite openly that it was President-elect Trump's threats, his imminent arrival in office, his dispatching an envoy that helped push it over the edge. So his inauguration is certainly a factor in this, and he's going to be entering into a Middle East that is in flux right now. You have a very delicate peace deal going into effect. You have a new political dynamic just to the north of Israel in Lebanon. You have lawlessness and destruction in Gaza that needs to be rebuilt. No plans at this stage for any future government there. No concrete outline for who's going to govern Gaza. You have a new government in Syria led by an untested Islamist leader. There have already been strikes against Iran by Israel. Talk that Israel might carry out more strikes against potentially Iran's nuclear sites. All of this will happen under President Trump's watch.
Richard Engel, live for us there in Jerusalem. It's a lot to watch, Richard. We're glad to have you there, and I know you'll be keeping us posted as these developments continue to unfold in the coming days and hours. Appreciate that. Back here in Washington, some new reporting from our NBC News team in just the last couple of minutes on a topic that is of high interest at the moment, and that is that TikTok ban that is set to go into effect unless there's some sort of intervening thing on Sunday. Well, guess what? There may be a kind of intervening thing. The Biden administration, according to sources familiar, apparently is punting the decision of what to do to the incoming Trump administration. We've learned that a White House official says, given the timing of when it goes into effect over a holiday weekend, a day before inauguration, it'll be up to the next administration to implement. How? Apparently, sources say the Biden team will not fine any company that lets TikTok stay on their app stores even after the ban goes into effect. Okay, so that kind of answers potentially the practical impact. If, in fact, the ban goes into effect, midnight Sunday, you could still download it. Potentially, if these companies continue to keep it up on the App Store, the Biden administration is basically not going to enforce it, at least at the moment. All of it's happening is we're now expecting a ruling from the Supreme Court tomorrow, rulings to drop. The question is, will there be a ruling on TikTok? Will there be perhaps an injunction? In other words, pressing pause on this ban, kicking it down the road a bit? That is a huge question mark. But it's interesting, given that the Supreme Court just announced that they'll be out with some rulings tomorrow. Let me bring in now Aaron Gilchrist, our White House correspondent, as well as our NBC News legal analyst, Danny Savalos. Aaron, let me start with you. What is up with what the Biden administration is thinking here at this moment? Just nuts and bolts to give it to us straight.
So, Hallie, this is not altogether surprising, right? There were some indications earlier this week that there might be some resistance to letting this law go into effect as it was written to do on this coming Sunday, the day before President-elect Trump is inaugurated. And so what we understand now at this point from sources is that the Biden administration will not look to fine companies that allow TikTok to still operate on their platforms immediately on the day that this law goes into effect. You sort of back up here a little bit. The law was written such that ByteDance, the company that owns TikTok, would have to divest, meaning sell TikTok to an American company if it wanted to continue to be operational here in the United States. The fines would be against other companies, Apple, Google. These platforms that have these stores where people can get the app downloaded onto their phones, if they allowed people to still be able to use these apps, the updates and things of that nature. And now, because there's been some pushback from Democrats on the Hill saying that maybe we need to hold off a little bit and see if we can work something out before this law goes into effect. And we've seen and heard from President-elect Trump that he would like to see this law not go into effect the way that it is written at this point. We know that his team filed a brief with the Supreme Court back in December saying that they wanted them to put a stay on this law going into effect so that the Trump team could come into office and try to negotiate another piece of legislation that would allow TikTok to exist. President-elect Trump has been in favor of TikTok. We know that he talked about the reality around that application being one that his campaign used. He talked about having won the younger vote because of platforms like TikTok, Hallie. And so now it seems as though all these things are coming together to allow the 170 million users in this country to still be able to use TikTok after Sunday.
But to be clear, Aaron, both you and I are old enough to remember when it was Donald Trump who backed a TikTok ban several years ago. It was Joe Biden who signed that TikTok ban into law, and it was members of the House and the Senate who passed the law that banned TikTok, including many Democrats. And now they are pushing to try to save the very ban that at various points, many of them backed. You heard the citation of a national security threat. That was the big concern, right? That TikTok was dangerous to U.S. national security. Did that go away?
It didn't go away. Just recently, we heard the National Security Advisor, Jake Sullivan, say that professionals who look at intelligence information believe that there is a threat of China being able to access information of Americans, that there is a national security threat tied to this application. At the same time, the political will, at least as it stands today, is not such that these people are willing to. I think if you really look at it, you have to look at the reality. There are so many users of this application in this country. And so if there's a way to figure out, and the Trump team seems to suggest that they want to be able to figure out a way to make sure that this application can continue to function here in the States, whether that would be figuring out some way to block Chinese, potential Chinese access, or figure out a way to have an American company take over this application. That's something now that there seems to be more political will to make happen, as opposed to just forcing this application to die a slow death in the app stores.
Aaron Gilchrist, so interesting. More on that, I know, in the days to come. Aaron, minute by minute, watching that. Appreciate it. Danny Cervellos, let me bring you into this. So let me just ask like an existential question here. This is a federal law. Like, this is a law that is on the books. It was passed by Congress. It was signed by the President of the United States. If the Biden administration, based on what our sources are telling our team, can essentially choose not to fine companies that don't comply with the law in this instance, what stops a future president from choosing unilaterally to take steps that would undercut a federal law in the future?
Has there ever been a company in American history with more legal uncertainty about its own future? And I say this, I sound glib, but I mean, marijuana dispensaries have more confidence in their legal future than TikTok. And the reason I bring that up, it goes to your question. There is precedent for administrations, Trump, Biden, whatever, in terms of how much they choose to enforce federal law. Marijuana, for example, is still illegal under federal law. And yet, if you live somewhere like New York City, there's a marijuana or a cannabis dispensary every block or so. That is because of the federal government choosing not to enforce that which is an existing extant federal law. That is exactly what may happen here. When this law goes into effect, Biden or Trump, really the Trump administration, has a lot of power in determining to what degree they want to enforce this law. And that's why even an executive order you might see.
Yeah. So, but like, and I appreciate the analogy there and the comparison. I think that helps people understand it. It's probably not a perfect analogy though, right? Because in the cannabis, in the marijuana instance, the feds, I believe, have made the argument it's a state's issue. There's not a similar argument that's being made here, is there?
No, you're exactly right. I mean, the feds can say it's a state issue, but the law says thou shalt not have marijuana. And so it really is. You're absolutely right. The federal government has decided to say, oh, we'll just let the states handle it. But that's just because they want to do that. It's still illegal under federal law, and they could still send the FBI or agents and kick down doors and arrest people if they wanted to. They just don't want to. And so the TikTok law, you're right, it is a little different in some ways. But in some ways, the administration has a lot of say in defining what is divestment and how the law is, not only how it's enforced, but what fits within the conduct of the law. And all that really does is lead to a lot of uncertainty. And I go back to marijuana. In the last 5 or 6 years, there's been a lot of uncertainty. For many years, they couldn't accept banking transactions, and they had to be all cash. That's what happens when you have the inconsistency of something that is a federal law, but the administration chooses not to enforce it.
Of course, there is the other wild card in all of this, which is that at some point between now and like 11:59 p.m. on Saturday night, the Supreme Court could come out and potentially issue a ruling that makes this ban moot. That feels like the less likely option based on what experts have said, reading the tea leaves from arguments. Or they could put in place an injunction, right, which is basically the pause button being pressed on any kind of a ban. What's interesting is that just in the last 45 minutes, we've learned that the Supreme Court will drop rulings tomorrow. We don't know which ones, but how interesting on the Friday before a holiday weekend when this huge deadline is in place, we're hearing that the Supreme Court may make a move or two on a TBD topic, Danny. How should we read those tea leaves?
Oh, I would love to say it's a near certainty that we're going to get that TikTok ruling tomorrow. But I'm old enough to remember, and so are you, Hallie, all last summer when we thought every week was the immunity decision. Some days it feels like the Supreme Court is trolling us because they know we're waiting with bated breath. So is it likely that we'll get that TikTok decision? It sure seems likely because that is such a time-sensitive issue, maybe more so than other cases on the Supreme Court's docket. But then again, the Supreme Court has left us hanging before. It might just do it again.
Danny Savalos, lots to watch, as you say, with bated breath over the course of the next couple of days. Danny, thank you very much. Appreciate that. We're also watching what's happening out west, where tonight a new threat for the folks only beginning to start thinking about recovery from those LA wildfires. Landslides, even mudslides, are now big concerns for houses in the hills where those fires burned, especially if and when it rains. Look at this. That's the first home reported destroyed by a landslide after the fires. I mean, the house is just came down the hill, basically split in half. The LA sheriff is telling people today that some people can start to go back to their homes, but for some others who have been evacuated, it could be at least a week or maybe longer. Firefighters are still working to get full containment on both the Eaton and the Palisades fires, as they're also managing to try to put out smaller fires that are popping up, like this one near Santa Ana High School that was luckily stopped earlier today. Bill Cairns is standing by, but I want to start on the ground with Ellison Barber in Pasadena. It is crisis on top of crisis on top of crisis, and now the possibility of landslides, mudslides, et cetera, Ellison. It's like folks just can't catch a break. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's really hard. A little bit of relief for some people when they were told some residents, and I want to make sure we're clear on that, some residents who are on the fringes of the fire areas can start to go back to their homes with ID, but it's a very small group, and people are going to want to check their local evacuation orders before they head out to try and do that, because according to the LA County Fire Chief, the majority of people who have been impacted the most by these fires are not going to be able to get back home for at least another week. And they say that is because there are still ongoing safety issues, in addition to some teams still dealing with search and recovery efforts for people who are missing or unaccounted for. There is still a threat from debris, downed power lines, the potential possibly for hotspots, even though they say in the last 36 hours they have not seen any expansion or flare-ups of the Palisades or Eaton fire. And now what you mentioned, those issues with landslides and mudslides. There's still just so much for people to deal with on the ground here. Officials say we know you're desperate to get home, but bear with us because there are a lot of layers that are still going on here, and we need to wait until we know for sure that it's safe. Hallie.
Ellison Barber live for us there in Pasadena. Ellison, thank you. Let me get to Bill Cairns now. Better conditions, that's good news. Question is, still no rain in the forecast, right? And there may be more wind coming?
Eventually, next week especially, but until then, everyone gets to catch their breath. And the first thing you notice when you looked at Ellison, you're like, she's wearing a jacket. Like, that's different than any of the live shots we've seen from any of our reporters over the last, 6 to 8 days. It is cooler, and now we're having the air coming off the water. So we're just about done with our final red flag warning. We've had these up now for 10 straight days, and we do still have what we call, elevated risk of fire. This is mostly because, not the wind, because the wind is very light. The relative humidity is still bone dry, almost like desert. So any fires that do form, they still could burn pretty quickly, but they're not going to spread rapidly. The relative humidity, measures the amount of moisture in the air. So if it's like the summer and it's really humid, it's 80 to 90%. And in the winter, especially time, you get really dry air. And this is desert air that's still over the mountains, 16 at Burbank. But notice LA's at 46. That is the highest it's been in a week and a half because the air is coming off the ocean. The winds have been much lighter, 8 to 10 just about everywhere. In the mountains, we got a few spots at 20. And that's where the red flag warnings are still up. They'll be dropped here shortly. And as we go throughout the night tonight, we still consider it's kind of a light breeze, not going to have much of an onshore or offshore flow. As we go through tomorrow afternoon, we keep it pretty light. And even as we head through the beginning of the weekend, you're asking about the rainfall, still goose eggs. In this, by the way, we're heading towards the middle of what we call the rainy season. This is when they have to get their water. It does not rain in the summer in the desert Southwest or even the late spring. So we got 2 or 3 more months here. And if we continue with this weather pattern, it's brutal. I mean, it hasn't rained yet in Vegas, Phoenix, or Tucson. Still goose eggs. And Los Angeles has only had a drip in the bucket. And Hallie, as we look towards all of next week, even the end of next week, we are dry as could be throughout the West. So, yeah. And I know if it rains, we're going to get mudslide problems and things like that.
Right.
But they'll take the rain. I mean, we have to have it.
Sure, of course, you got to. Bill Cairns, because that's the thing that's going to get folks, at least firefighters, some relief there. Bill, thank you very much. Back here to Washington now, to the Capitol, where the man who President-elect Trump wants to be in charge of what could be the most sweeping legislation of his first term is of his second term, rather, is wrapping up his turn to take questions from senators. This is Scott Bessent, maybe not a super familiar face to you, maybe not a super familiar name, but he may be about to become that if he is confirmed as Treasury Secretary. He's a hedge fund manager now. And Democrats really went after him on questions about those tariffs that Donald Trump has promised, about his pledges to lower cost and the minimum wage.
It's going to be paid for by workers and small businesses. So, your response?
Yes, Senator, I would respectfully disagree. And the history of tariffs and tariff theory, optimal tariff theory, does not support what you're saying.
If the president-elect were to propose a policy that you believe will increase prices, would you advise against it?
I would speak to President Trump about it. It is his decision.
So you don't think we should change the federal minimum wage of $7.25 an hour?
No, sir.
Okay.
Julie Sirkin is joining us now. Despite all that, Julie, we're going to see more confirmations on the Hill next week. It does kind of feel like Scott Bessent falls into the, let's call it, Marco Rubio bucket, where it feels like confirmation is pretty assured from here, and he may even get bipartisan support.
Absolutely. I mean, Senator Mark Warner came out of that hearing and essentially told us as much, that he is open to his nomination. This is a guy, again, who doesn't lack qualifications or expertise. Sure, Democrats might disagree with his vision for Treasury, his vision for tariffs and tax cuts. Of course, he's going to align with what President-elect Trump wants him to do and the conservative side of the aisle on that vein. But it doesn't mean that any Democrats can argue that he just doesn't have the chops. Here's Warner, and we'll talk about it on the other side.
I completely disagree with some of his facts about the characterization of the Trump tax cuts, but I'm open. I also will say this, I thought it was a very powerful comment that he said that he's open to increasing sanctions on Russia, to increase the pressure. I hope he'll make that case strongly to the president-elect.
And, of course, that comment coming off the heels of what Trump plans to do with the war in Ukraine. And, look, when it comes to Bessent, he did say that the single most important issue of the day is extending those tax cuts. And we know that Republicans in the House and Senate are going to be tackling that issue in the coming months, Hallie.
The other person who's on the Hill today, Lee Zeldin, Republican former congressman that Mr. Trump wants to run the EPA, an agency he's not like a huge fan of, right? And you can see how he's trying to thread the needle here in a response to Senator Sanders about some of the past comments from President-elect Trump describing climate change as a hoax. Let me play that.
Yeah,
I believe that climate change is real, as I told you. I think that he's concerned about the economic costs of some policies where there's a debate and a difference of opinion between parties.
Look, walk through that, Julie.
Yeah, because again, Zeldin is in the same category of somebody who maybe he lacks the qualifications. He would argue that as a congressman who represented the Long Island area, it's a coastal area, he had to make some bipartisan compromises in the environmental protections area. But certainly, he's not somebody that's going to just continue to run that agency like the Biden administration has. Climate change is not a center point of his work here. At the same time, though, I think Democrats were pleasantly surprised at some of his answers. We heard as much as they came out of the committee. He didn't say climate change is a hoax. That already puts him in a different position than what we heard publicly from Trump.
Julie Sirkin, live for us on the Hill. Jules, thank you. In his farewell address to the nation, President Biden is issuing a warning to Americans. I want you to listen closely.
Today, an oligarchy is taking shape in America of extreme wealth, power, and influence that literally threatens our entire democracy.
The oligarchy taking place, you heard him say. Well, that sent Google searches for the oligarchy shooting way up. People were wondering, what is an oligarch? What does this mean? Well, lucky for us, we've covered it right here on this show before. And in light of the president's comments, we wanted to break it down for you. So let's bring you to Russia. Watch. The modern Russian oligarch's story starts back in 1989.
Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall.
The wall fell, and soon after, in 1991, so did the Soviet Union.
Eastern Europe is free. The Soviet Union itself is no more. This is a victory for democracy and freedom.
After almost 70 years of Russian communism, where the state controlled everything, the Russian people saw huge political and economic change practically overnight. For most regular Russians, this seismic shift was chaotic. But for a select few businessmen known as oligarchs, they managed to rise to the top. The word itself is Greek, derived from oligarchy, and means rule of the few. An oligarch is one of those few. With the state no longer controlling major economic sectors, rich men who had been gaining wealth often in Russia's legitimate businesses and allegedly in the black market stood ready to take control if they had political connections. And many of them did. 1996, it looked as if the communists might return to power in the presidential election. Oligarchs stood together to help Boris Yeltsin's re-election. Infighting inside those elite circles helped bring on the Russian financial crisis of 1998, which in turn helped the rise of Vladimir Putin. At the time, the future president was a lieutenant colonel in the KGB, reportedly gathering information on these oligarchs and the illegal ways they got rich. The oligarchs largely stood in line with Putin as he rose in the political ranks to prime minister, then president. And for the most part, they've stayed in line. In his farewell speech, President Biden did not name names specifically of who he sees as the oligarchy now in America. But at a different point, he also warned about, in his words, the tech industrial complex, which to many appeared like a not so subtle shot at President-elect Trump as he's tightening his ties with tech billionaires ahead of his inauguration. Let's get you over to the 5 things our team thinks you should know about tonight. Number 1, a Georgia state senator arrested during the state's joint session. Look at this. Senator Colton Moore was blocked from getting into the chamber, ultimately thrown to the floor right there and handcuffed. You're about to see it. He was banned from entering the state house for speaking poorly about the former speaker, who is now deceased, while his family was sitting in the gallery last year. Moore ignored that ban to try to go to the governor Brian Kemp's State of the State speech. Number 2, an 11-year-old girl, 11 years old, handcuffed, apparently mistakenly, in Syracuse. The sheriff's office says the child was detained without force. They thought she was a suspect in a stolen car situation because she was wearing similar clothes to the person responsible. She was released after deputies figured out she was not, in fact, of course, the suspect. A couple minutes later, the Syracuse sheriff is defending the situation. Number 3, have you heard Live Golf is teaming up with Fox Sports? That's a Saudi-backed golf organization we've talked about a lot on the show, announcing a huge multi-year media rights agreement with Fox. The network will start airing Live tournaments in February. Number 4, the FDA now approving Zyn to be put up for sale. The agency says these nicotine pouches lower the risk of cancer and other serious health conditions compared with cigarettes. The move from the FDA comes as these nicotine-infused pouches are becoming more popular with younger folks, with critics pointing out some of the flavors, like citrus and cool mint, really appeal to kids. The FDA saying in a statement, and I'm quoting here, "There is no safe tobacco product." Number 5, legendary baseball broadcaster and actor Bob Uecker died today at the age of 90 after a long battle with lung cancer. Bob Uecker, of course, the Hall of Fame broadcaster who also took his talents to Hollywood as Mr. Belvedere, was the voice of the Brewers for more than 50 years. All right, take a look at this. People getting together to watch that SpaceX rocket launch down in Florida. This is a live look now. Excuse me, that's in Boca Chica, Texas there. We are going to take you to that launch coming up in just a second. Right after the break, Tom Costello is about to be with us to talk us through it. That's next. So any minute now, SpaceX is set to launch its Starship mega rocket, the biggest, most powerful one ever built. Take a look, live look here. This is the SpaceX live stream coming out of Texas. They're happy. They're psyched, man. Look at that. You see it T-minus just about 5 minutes. We're going to carry this launch live when it happens. This will be SpaceX's 7th Starship test flight. What we're watching for here, a repeat of an unprecedented move, bringing this giant booster back from space and like catching it at the launch pad. That is not easy to do. They did it once already. You're watching that here. This was back in October. That was the first time that something like this had ever happened. You see it? It's kind of like a, high-tech basketball through a hoop, if we can use that analogy here. Very dramatic here, but a big milestone in the space race, so to speak. And, of course, toward the future of space travel and Elon Musk's ambitions in that field as well. Want to show you another live look as we bring in Dr. Emily Rice, who's joining us here on set, a professor of astrophysics at the Macaulay Honors College at the City University of New York. Leroy Chow is joining us as well, former NASA astronaut and International Space Station commander. Tom Costello is with us here, our chief aviation correspondent, and Marissa Parra as well, our NBC News correspondent. Thank you all for being here. Let's just lean in. Let's settle in. Let's get ready to watch this thing. What are we watching for, Tom?
Well, this is a very big and important task for SpaceX. Here's why. As you mentioned, this is the biggest rocket ever built. The people in that area say it's like a massive earthquake whenever it lifts off. The point here is to test this technology because they eventually want to use this rocket to go into orbit. They want to use various versions of this rocket to refuel in orbit. And they want to take this rocket, this technology, to the moon one day, maybe even Mars, variations of this rocket. Let me just tell you a couple of factoids here. This is 400 feet tall, taking off, as you know, from Boca Chica, Texas. It is in 2 stages. There you go, the Super Heavy booster on the bottom, and then you got the Starship spacecraft itself. The Heavy booster is burning liquid methane and liquid oxygen, and it is a monster of a rocket, as we've said. The plan here is to lift off and hopefully deploy 10 dummy Starlink satellites. There is the map, and there's the timeline. So about a minute into liftoff, they're going to go into what's called max Q. That's the moment of peak mechanical stress on the rocket itself. And then at 2 minutes and 32 seconds, you will have the Super Heavy, that booster rocket cut off. The power will cut off. And then at 3 minutes and 31 seconds, they'll jettison the booster rocket. And then it gets very cool because the burn starts, right, for when they come back down on the booster rocket. And this is what SpaceX has trademarked and put a patent on. The idea that you can reuse the booster rocket, landing back on Earth with the chopstick capture, which is an amazing piece of technology. Nobody else does that. And then we go back into space because we still have Starship that's up there. At 17 minutes and 33 seconds, they're going to deploy those dummy Starlink satellites. They want to see, can they do this? Can they deploy the satellites off of Starship? And then they will start bringing Starship back into the Earth's atmosphere. It will finally come in at about a minute, make that an hour and 6 minutes in. But it's not going to land. It will literally fall into the Indian Ocean. So this is proving the technology that is rewriting the entire game here. This technology, SpaceX and NASA wants to use to eventually carry humans to the moon and beyond.
The Starlink component is really interesting here, too, Dr. Rice, because this is not something that SpaceX has done before. They're trying this for the first time.
Yeah, this is we know that there's Starlink satellites up there now. This is the next generation of Starlink satellites, and this is the first time that the payload is being put into orbit by the Starship from SpaceX. These ones are, like I said, are not going into orbit. Like Tom said, these are kind of prototype satellites, but it's the first time that the payload is coming from the Starship.
We are under 1 minute now to the launch of this ship. Leroy Chad, let me bring you in briefly here in about 10 seconds or less. The biggest thing you're watching for. Go.
Well, watching for a successful launch, of course, successful separation, capture of the booster and Starship, deploy of those dummy Starlink satellites, and a successful reentry, testing the revamped heat shield of the vehicle.
Leroy, I'm going to come back to you as soon as this thing launches, but let's listen in now. Under 30 seconds for the launch of the Starship here. Let's listen.
And they just said they are go for launch. Can I just tell you? 33
and 20 seconds.
Minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. We have liftoff. Vehicle's pitching downrange.
More than 30 seconds into flight. Telemetry showing 33 out of 33 engines as it's pitching downrange.
Booster ship, avionics power, and telemetry
Dr.
nominal.
Rice, one of those engines was actually being reused. It was recovered from the Super Heavy booster that was flown during Starship's 5th test flight back in October.
This might be one of the first times. I can't remember if this is the first time that one of those engines is being reused, but this is a huge advancement for spaceflight, being able to reuse these boosters. Yeah, it cuts the cost by something like a factor of 10. And so it makes these launches, you know, we're talking about the biggest, heaviest, tallest rocket, but being able to cut costs by that much can make this much more of an everyday occurrence, which is really exciting.
Max Q right now, the maximum stress on this rocket as it moves, and it is now supersonic, as you heard.
On the way uphill. Reminder that all of our teams down here on the ground are now looking at systems on the tower. They just did a manual check through. That's going to inform that manual flight director's decision.
Yeah, we're going to be watching the next important
coming
point.
Up, though, is going to be hot staging.
Yeah, I was just going to say 2 minutes and 32 seconds.
One heck of a light show.
We'll have cutoff from the super booster.
Ascent. One heck of a light show, Leroy. That is for sure. That's an understatement, huh?
That's going to happen.
Oh, absolutely. It looked flawless. Haven't heard of any problems. Trajectory looked good. All 33 engines of the first stage burning. So next big event is hot staging, which should occur in about just a couple of minutes, or maybe a minute and a half.
And explain the hot staging, why that's so critical.
Well, the bottom line is,
what happens is they
go ahead,
actually light the second stage engines before the first stage engines completely shut down, and that allows the vehicle, the ship, to get away from the booster, because the booster is still burning, but once it separates, suddenly it's got a lot less mass and it could accelerate and hit the ship. But the ship's going to have its own engines going, so it'll be accelerating away, so we should have no contact between the two parts.
There you go. And you've just now seen the booster separate out, and a perfect jettison of the booster. And now it will begin its descent back down to Earth. And again, that trademarked SpaceX move to land that booster back on ground to reuse it again. But more importantly, that incredible job of grabbing it by the so-called chopsticks back at Boca Chica, Texas. So that will be a critical point again.
Marissa Parr, let me bring you into the conversation here, because SpaceX has done that once successfully. Loyal viewers of this show will know that the last time SpaceX tried this kind of thing, they were not able to do that. Explain how this particular launch compares, because SpaceX, as Dr. Rice has pointed out, as Tom has pointed out, is really continuing to try to push the boundaries here of what space travel can be and how you can do it in a way that is, in some ways, more efficient.
Right. And as Tom kind of outlined a little bit, we talked about the ways that this is going to be a little different, those 10 dummy mock satellites, if you will, with Starlink. And I will point out, by the way, there is a working Starlink that will provide us some of the most compelling images that we have seen, that we saw in these previous test flights. And we're going to catch a glimpse of that in that live stream that you're seeing right there on your screen. But in addition to that, we're hoping to see a repeat of that successful heavy booster catch with those chopstick arms. And all of this factors into the reusability, right? These are not just, when we talk about the New Glenn rocket, we're talking about Blue Origin, New Glenn, and Starship with SpaceX. Yeah. These are the largest, most powerful rockets ever built. And the reusability factor is key here as well, because when we talk about these larger missions, not just to the moon, but eventually one day bringing humans to Mars, it needs to be efficient, not just when it comes to the engineering, but of course fiscally as well, Hallie. And it's not lost on any of us the timeliness of all of this. It was just this morning, just after 2 in the morning, we saw another massive first in the space world. Right. Blue Origin successfully launching New Glenn into orbit for the very first time. Now, finally, in the race, we're talking about a competitor to SpaceX, but something that was welcomed by the competitor. We saw Elon Musk, Jared Isaacman throwing in their congratulations. Jared Isaacman, of course, the presumed incoming NASA chief. So a lot to watch out for, but today a lot of timeliness, because not just the first orbital launch for New Glenn, but then we saw the SpaceX, we saw the International Space Station spacewalk, Wendy Williams, who was the test pilot for Boeing's Starliner. So a lot coinciding with each other on a day that we probably couldn't have even fathomed 10 or 15 years ago, Hallie.
Dr. Rice, it is a new frontier here in space exploration when you have these big private corporations led by people like Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk, trying to push the envelope.
Yeah. You know, it's always been there. Like, NASA has always relied on industry. There's always been contractors. I think what's new now is that the public knows about them as well. There's a much more of a kind of a fan base, for lack of a better term, for NASA, for SpaceX, for Boeing, than there ever has been in the past. It's really a new generation of space exploration, and it's I'm definitely of the mind that the rising tide raises all boats. Like, everybody's going to benefit. This is, you know, there's something that, of course, we have fiscal considerations, commercial considerations, but it's all humans that are doing this. Humanity together is going to get back to the moon and maybe even to Mars with these rockets.
We are.
Take a look here. It's coming down right now. Look at that super heavy booster right now coming back down to Earth. You know, I'm sorry, the engineering prowess on this is just astonishing, and it's right now coming into the chopsticks. Is that amazing or what?
Booster now hovering as it aligns with the tower for catch.
Booster coming in. Get ready for that boom, Kate.
Down to 3 engines.
Wow.
They did it.
Yeah, listen, this is why SpaceX has completely rewritten the rules and rewritten the book about going to space. Nobody in the world is coming up with this kind of engineering expertise. This is only their 7th. I was just going to say, let the sound run, guys, because I want to hear what they're saying.
Catch by the launch tower. This is the same tower, the launch pad, where that booster took off from just 7.5 minutes ago.
Yeah. Listen, this is only their 7th test flight. Talk about perfecting the engineering involved in this. They want to run 25 of these flights this year in 2025. 25 of them. By the way, that is not entirely popular in that neighborhood in Texas because of the environmental damage.
And the crowds that come through.
Yes, but they've done environmental damage. They're affecting the wildlife there. They just 2 nights ago, they had a big public gathering with people complaining to the FAA about all of this. That said, under the Trump administration, highly unlikely that the FAA or NASA will curtail them. And honestly, now the question, I will tell you, is whether NASA is essentially just going to completely give all control over going to the moon over to SpaceX. They are so advanced at this point, and all of their technology is what NASA is depending on.
Leroy Chow, you know, SpaceX just made it look easy there. It is not. It is far from it.
Absolutely. This is incredible. Now they've done it 2 out of 3 times. The only reason they didn't do it last time is because they had a problem on the ground. It wasn't a problem with the booster. What they have done is they have proved that they can soft return this booster, and they know how to refurbish them because they do the Falcon 9s on a routine basis. That means they can reuse this booster, and that's going to dramatically bring down the cost of launch. Starship is also reusable, fully reusable. It hasn't landed intact yet, but it's demonstrated that it can. It's hovered over the Indian Ocean more than once. It's going to do it again today, hopefully, and it'll do it in daylight this time so we can get more telemetry and more data. But this is an exciting, exciting program.
Leroy Chow, Dr. Emily Rice, Tom Costello, Marissa Parra, thank you so much for being here as we've had this live coverage of yet another historic launch for SpaceX. You watched it right here on NBC News Now. We will have more coverage coming up next hour as the rocket, of course, continues to do its thing. But coming up here on the show, a different kind of flight, one of the TikTok refugees, so to speak. The welcome party for U.S. users happening right now on a different Chinese social media app. That's next. To tonight's original now with in-depth reporting on a topic we've been watching. And tonight, it's the internet, or at least some of it, in mourning, so to speak, ahead of a potential TikTok ban in the United States, which is, by the way, as we talked about earlier in the show, still very much up in the air right now. But others are in a different stage of grief, the acceptance stage, with a whole bunch of Americans moving on. What does that mean? Moving on to what? Well, not Instagram, not X, but a different Chinese social media app, Red Note. And that turn of events means that U.S. and Chinese users are on the same platform. Here's Janice Mackey-Frayer.
Hey, all my new Chinese friends out there.
They're showing up in online droves.
Hello, Red Note. Oh my gosh, TikTok refugee here.
TikTok users looking for a new home and finding it here.
This might be better than TikTok.
On Xiaohongshu, or Little Red Book, the English name shortened to Red Note. It's become the most downloaded app in the U.S. Apple Store, with over 700,000 new users in the past week alone.
Ni hao. Did I do it? Did I get it right?
Part Chinese Instagram, part search engine, Xiaohongshu is one of China's most popular platforms.
I'm Becca, and I'm introducing myself as a lifestyle vlogger.
Becca Wong is a lifestyle vlogger.
Okay, I'm introducing you to the New Year's gift box.
She uses her account, Who's Becca, to create product reviews.
It's more elegant compared to Chinese version of TikTok.
Critics argue the law pushing TikTok toward extinction goes against free speech. The Supreme Court will have its say on that.
This morning, I opened up my little red book, and what the hell is going on?
For now, the Americans pivoting east has veteran users of the app leaning in.
You better learn yourself a little bit Chinese.
Memes of a terracotta warrior embracing Lady Liberty. Comments ranging from jokes about spies to offers of help with homework. Just don't forget to pay the cat tax that asks American users to introduce their cats.
I think this is a great moment for like a little bonding to happen.
This unexpected U.S.-China connection creating what some are daring to call a kind of digital diplomacy.
The vast majority of people in the Chinese mainland have never even talked to a foreigner. It really seems like a surreal moment.
Thank you, my Red Note brothers and sisters.
The migration is also, for some Americans, an act of protest, at least for Diego Abane from Pasadena.
I don't know what's going to happen to TikTok.
Who, like others, joined Xiaohongshu after hearing on TikTok about other options.
They're just all joining on this app instead of going to any like meta app like Instagram or like X or things like that, just to not support them and saying that it's not really the app that's the problem.
What sort of comments are you getting?
Literally anything from cat pictures to people just saying nice video.
All the new English language content, though, has censors on overdrive here. According to online job boards, they're hiring reviewers. Sensitive issues, and there are many here, are routinely blocked.
If you don't want to play by the rules, you can never post it out.
Already there's talk on the app that foreign accounts might be limited. The company that owns it has declined to comment.
Americans would literally rather learn Mandarin than use Instagram Reels.
That Chinese state media coverage of TikTok refugees seems positive, signals the government here may not crack down yet. Even the main Communist Party newspaper sounds delighted with the interaction.
People are really seeing this as a historic moment in cultural communications, and they're trying to remember it, that we can be friends.
Not all Chinese users are thrilled with Americans piling into their online community. The honeymoon may not last, but for now, it seems everyone is talking. Janice Mackey-Freyer, NBC News, Beijing.
Still ahead, Wendy Williams speaking for the first time about that guardianship, why she says she feels like she's in prison. Former TV host Wendy Williams today, for the first time, doing her first live interview about her guardianship since that dementia diagnosis last year. Williams calling into the Breakfast Club, telling host Charlamagne the God that she is, quote, trapped in this guardianship and says she cannot leave the facility she's in. Listen.
I am not cognitively impaired, you know what I'm saying? No, but I feel like I am in prison.
NBC News has reached out to Williams' guardian, Sabrina Morrissey, for comment on Williams' claims on the radio show. Williams, remember, retired from her show in 2022, and her team says she was diagnosed with a nervous syndrome affecting her ability to communicate and a form of dementia that is usually associated with personality changes. Chloe Malas is joining us now. And Chloe, we should point out you worked on the Wendy Williams show earlier in your career. Talk us through what else Williams said today about where she is and what she's experiencing. Her niece was part of the conversation, and at one point she called it kind of a luxury prison, if you will.
Hey there, Hallie. Yeah, I mean, I didn't work on the show, but I was a guest on the show for about a decade, and I got to know Wendy Williams really well. And obviously, this is incredibly sad for everybody that's known her over the years. I mean, look, first of all, it comes as a shock that she did this interview this morning, but this is all coming amid her family launching a GoFundMe for her, trying to raise $50,000 for their legal fees because they claim that they've run out of money because they're trying to get Wendy out of this conservatorship that she's been under, this financial conservatorship, since 2022. She also said that she feels like she's a prisoner. She's not even sure that she's going to be able to get out of this facility where she is in New York to see her father for his birthday in a few weeks. I want you to take a listen to a little bit more of what she had to say.
I'm in this place where the people are in their 90s and their 80s and their 70s. There's something wrong with these people here on this floor. You understand what I'm saying?
Yes.
And I'm not saying something bad. I'm just saying that I am with these people. I am clearly not. Look, I have breakfast, lunch, and dinner right here on the bed. All right? I watch TV. I listen to radio. I look at the window. I talk on the phone.
I mean, look, this is a woman that at one point had one of the highest rated talk shows, a few years ago. I mean, she was the queen of daytime talk, like a modern day Oprah, if you will, but who really spilled the tea, right? And would shoot you straight. So obviously, though, when you listen to her talking, Hallie, she doesn't sound like this version of her that has been written about over the last year, especially since Lifetime put out their 4-part docuseries, Where is Wendy Williams, which really sparked concern. And you can see clips of it right there where she was, not seeming like the Wendy that we heard on the phone this morning on the Breakfast Club. And I do want to point out, though, that a lot of people are saying that there are parallels to Britney Spears and the Free Britney movement just a few years ago, Hallie.
Yeah, are you seeing fans, this sort of Free Wendy movement, draw those kinds of parallels, Chloe?
I am. And, obviously the public is so much more educated on conservatorships. And there is just this big push to free Wendy right now. And also her family is supporting that, which is different than what Britney Spears was going through at the time when she was under a conservatorship with her father. But it's going to be really interesting to see this play out over the coming weeks, Hallie, because going on the Breakfast Club, hearing Wendy in her own words, it is like that moment when I sat in the courtroom and heard Britney Spears in her own words.
Yeah. Chloe Malas, thank you so much for that. Appreciate it. Good to see you. That does it for us for this hour. We've got more coverage picking up right now. We are coming on the air with the fast-moving developments on TikTok in just the last hour. Sources telling our team that the Biden administration will not fine any company that lets TikTok stay on the App Store when the ban goes into effect on Sunday. All of it playing out as the Supreme Court is now suggesting they're dropping new rulings tomorrow. Will TikTok be among them? We've got it covered from every angle coming up in just a minute. Plus, some other news tonight. We are heading overseas where there is potentially an ominous sign. The Israeli prime minister delaying a vote on that ceasefire deal with Hamas to tomorrow at the earliest. Some concerns now that those cheers from 24 hours ago will be short-lived, with Palestinian and hostage lives in the balance. Plus, we'll take you to California with a new threat now for the people devastated by those wildfires, how landslides are adding yet another dimension to this crisis later in the show. Hey there, I'm Hallie, and in just the last few hours, we saw the Biden administration basically punting what to do about this potential TikTok ban coming up on Sunday to the incoming Trump administration. A White House official says they're not going to put in place billions of dollars in fines. This is according to sources, to companies that let people access TikTok even after that ban goes into effect, which is set to happen on Sunday. They're basically saying, hey, Donald Trump, you're going to be inaugurated Monday. It is going to be your issue then. It's all coming as we're hearing the Supreme Court will issue rulings tomorrow. Could a TikTok decision or at least an injunction, in other words, a pause button, be among them? Remember, it's an interesting dynamic here. You had pretty much everybody at one point in the past who was on board with banning TikTok. That includes Donald Trump. That includes Joe Biden. That includes members of the House and the Senate on both sides of the aisle. However, a different tune from some of these leaders now, even after they pointed to national security concerns for a long time. We've got team coverage tonight with Savannah Sellers and Aaron Gilchrist at the White House. So, Savannah, it has been a fast-moving 90 minutes in these TikTok developments here. You and our team putting together some new reporting on what you're hearing from sources related to what sounds like sort of deferred enforcement or not true enforcement of a TikTok ban if it does go into effect. Explain that.
Yeah, Hallie, I will, and I hope nobody's eyes glaze over, but I promise I'll try to make this.
People are fascinated. Everybody wants to know, what does it mean for their TikTok?
And I want to get a little bit wonky with it because I think it explains how this whole thing is so murky. So it is deferred implementation, but also what it is it's just not actually enacting this. What was supposed to happen on the 19th, that is what essentially meant that a ban would be in place, was the service providers to TikTok. Okay, what does that mean? That means Apple when they have TikTok in their app store. That means Oracle when they are hosting data on their servers for TikTok. It means those types of companies were supposed to be fined on Sunday. And it was a big one, Hallie. It was $5,000 times $170 million. It was $5,000 per user. So that totals about $850 billion. That was the underpinning of this entire law. That's what made it effectively a ban, because who's going to say, yeah, sure, I'll pay $850 billion? A big question, though, that leaves, Hallie, is what do you think is going on inside of these tech companies? Trust me, we've been asking. We are getting no comment from them. We are not hearing back. But does the general counsel of a company advise, yes, that is enough protection for us, that we are going to go ahead and keep TikTok essentially exactly as it is? It is so notable, though, that we are hearing this from the Biden administration at the 11th hour. The fact that there was bipartisan support for this because of national security concern, and now it's the exact opposite, bipartisan support to try to intervene to save TikTok. Democratic lawmakers were calling the White House. The deputy White House chief of staff was essentially assigned to fix this, to come up with options that meant it would not be on Biden on his last day in office that 170 million Americans lose their TikTok.
Aaron, Savannah mentioned it. I've mentioned it here. This is 180 for some of these leaders who had supported a ban on TikTok, citing national security risks. Did those national security risks evaporate sometime in the last couple of days?
Yeah, no, this move seems to be, Hallie, totally political at this point. We heard from President Biden's national security advisor just a few days ago saying that intelligence professionals, people who do this sort of work day in and day out, made an assessment about the potential risks to national security that TikTok presents. The concern being that the Chinese government has outsized access to the information that is held by TikTok because the company ByteDance is a Chinese Chinese company. And as a result of that, there are concerns about the Chinese government having the ability to access the information or data that belongs to American citizens. And so the indicators at this point are not that has gone away, but that there's some desire on the part of at least the incoming administration to try to figure out how to take care of this situation without alienating 170 million users and getting rid of this app. I want you to hear some of what the incoming National Security Advisor had to say about this on TV this morning.
We will put measures in place to keep TikTok from going dark. In the legislation allows for an extension as long as a viable deal is on the table. And then, essentially that buys President Trump time to keep TikTok going. It's been a great platform for him and his campaign to get his America First message out. But at the same time, he wants to protect their data.
The president-elect said that TikTok was instrumental in him winning the youth vote, as he said it, since the election, Hallie. And so he wants to figure out a way to make it possible for this app to stick around.
So, Savannah, this ball appears to be landing squarely in Donald Trump's court once he is sworn into office here in Washington on Monday, unless the Supreme Court does something between now and 11:59 p.m. on Saturday, right?
That's exactly right. And yeah, oh, by the way, we're still waiting for this major ruling, which is still, of course, a big deal. But the fact that we just heard what we did from the Biden administration kind of voids the whole thing, honestly, at least for a little bit. But we did just hear from the Supreme Court. They will be issuing rulings tomorrow. That last minute announcement gives us reason to believe we will hear this TikTok answer from them. What Trump could do, open question. We know his incoming national security advisor says they are ready to intervene.
Aaron, back to you. This idea of the Biden administration taking this step here, this idea of the head of TikTok, the CEO, is going to be at the platform at the inauguration. I shouldn't say the platform, at the inauguration, at least on Monday. You've also got these other tech CEOs who are going to be coming. We just learned that I believe Tim Cook will be at the inaugural. We knew Jeff Bezos. We knew Elon Musk, of course, a close confidant of incoming President-elect Donald Trump, too.
Yeah, Mark Zuckerberg, too, from Meta, Facebook, Instagram, that world. These are all people that have had conversations as of late with the president-elect and people that he seems to want to surround himself with. The reality, Hallie, is that the digital age is here. Artificial intelligence, these companies have had their hands in what is going to be normal for the next generation of young people. And so it makes sense that an administration would want to be connected to them as well, although we did hear that warning from President Biden that some of these social media companies and the ultra-rich, as he's described them, are worth keeping a close eye on. Hallie.
Aaron Gilchrist, Savannah Sellers, glad to have you both with us. Lots of moving pieces here, and there may be more to come. Really appreciate it. Thank you. Let's take you overseas now to some new strikes in Gaza and new concerns that fragile ceasefire deal between Israel and Hamas may fall apart before it even goes into effect. That's supposed to happen on Sunday, but you've got the Israeli cabinet now meeting tomorrow to vote on the deal. That's after an all-day delay by the Israeli prime minister, who says without evidence that Hamas is creating a last-minute crisis. That says members of his government are threatening to leave. A senior government official says the holdup is related to new demands by Hamas related to Palestinians held in prison by Israel. Hamas is accusing Benjamin Netanyahu, the Israeli prime minister, of trying to back out of this deal. But remember that every second without a ceasefire puts more lives at risk. It means more time for hostages spent away from home, away from their families who desperately want them back. Hostages like these two American citizens, Sagid Dekohen and Keith Siegel. It also means potentially more Gazans, including some who were killed by Israeli airstrikes. More than 80 reported dead by the health ministry overnight, with some very scary stories, like this young boy who dug himself out of the rubble with his own hands. His aunt, uncle, baby sister, all killed in that strike. Richard Engel is in Jerusalem for us tonight. Okay, so you've got the reality on the ground in Israel, which is this delay. You now have the Israeli war cabinet set to meet tomorrow. And yet you have officials here in the United States, as well as other world leaders, sounding still optimistic here, still sounding confident this will get done. Where is the reality on that spectrum of sort of optimism to pessimism?
There's optimism that it will begin on Sunday. There is optimism that tomorrow the Israeli government will meet, that they will ratify this agreement after, as you said, an all-day delay. There is optimism that on Sunday there will be perhaps hostage releases, humanitarian aid will go in, there'll be some Israeli troop movements, and that the ceasefire and hostage deal will start. This is, as we've been talking about for the last 24 hours or so, this is a three-phase deal. So there is optimism that phase one will start. There is some optimism that phase one will even continue for several weeks. Under the terms, it is supposed to continue for 6 weeks or 42 days, that in that first initial period, the so-called humanitarian cases, they're all humanitarian cases, but the most extreme of the hostages, the one who are sick, elderly, injured, the women, they will come out first in exchange for Palestinian prisoners, in exchange for Israeli troops pulling back. If that all goes smoothly, and more aid goes into Gaza. If that all goes smoothly and there's no resumption of violence or a major disruption, and that is very possible, then things progress to phase two, in which the rest of the hostages are released, including military-aged men. Then phase three, which is the reconstruction of Gaza. There is not much confidence, not as much confidence, I should say, that in phase two and phase three. But at this stage, they're pretty confident that they're at least going to get started on Sunday.
Richard Engel live for us there in Jerusalem. Richard, we're glad to have you there. Much to watch in the days to come. We'll see you, of course, on Sunday on Nightly News and at other times as well. Appreciate that. Want to get to some breaking news now, because we've learned, as we have been on the air here, that SpaceX has lost its Starship, lost comms with its Starship, just about 30 minutes after we watched the launch of that historic test flight. This is the moment, remember, that the launch pad caught the booster of the rocket. That's like the bottom part. Remember, we showed it to you. We were talking with Tom Costello here, kind of in those chopsticks. It came in. This is only the second time that SpaceX has managed that. However, the rocket is somewhere, TBD. Tom Costello, our chief aviation correspondent, is joining us now. Do we know what happened? Any indication from SpaceX?
As you are now right now talking to me, I'm getting a text message from one of our producers down in Florida, and there is video that she's getting. This is amateur video from the Turks and the Caicos Islands showing what appears to be a rocket make that a spaceship breaking up in the sky above the Turks and Caicos. We're working to confirm that. However, I can tell you that SpaceX is confirming that they have lost all comms and all telemetry with the spaceship, with Starship. Now, I want to underscore, the rocket booster itself came back down to Earth. We watched that land. It came back down to Earth perfectly. It was caught in the chopsticks. There's the maneuver right there. What happened was, apparently, once they were up in space and you saw the booster rocket separate from Starship, Starship then had to essentially, you know, hit the gas, if you will, right? They had to light their engines to go on further into orbit. Something went wrong, and apparently that's when they lost all comms, all telemetry with Starship. Let's hasten to add, this is an unmanned, or more politically correct, uncrewed vehicle. There's nobody on board right now. And this is what a test flight is all about, right? They want to see if they can prove this technology works, because this is the future of NASA. Essentially, eventually, they want to use these rockets and Starship's entire mechanism, if you will, to create an in-orbit refueling depot where literally they would bring ships full of fuel, kind of orbit them around the Earth, and then eventually they would use that fuel to power a spaceship that goes all the way to the moon or Mars. And they would also be using versions of Starship to go to the moon and to Mars. So the entire architecture for getting to the moon and beyond is based largely on success with Starship and SpaceX. So this test today was critical. A big part of it worked perfectly, bringing the booster down. They were never planning to get Starship back
so
intact.
this was my question. They knew they wanted to reuse these boosters. That's a critical part for efficiency in their push into space moving forward. But that was the question of Starship. They were never expecting to get it back anyway.
They knew that they were going to lose Starship, but they wanted to bring it down over the Indian Ocean. In fact, they had a Gulf Stream that was flying in the Indian Ocean to capture video of it on reentry. It appears it didn't get that far, if in fact it did break up over the Turks and Caicos. So now this is going to be a SpaceX investigation, an FAA investigation. They've got to investigate whenever there's any mishap at all. And this may delay the next Starship test flight. Is it a setback for SpaceX? Yes, but they've had tremendous success up until now, and clearly great success by bringing the booster down.
Tom Costello, boy, talk about more developments in just the last 40 minutes or so since we were last together.
Yeah,
Tom,
that's right.
Thank you very much for
bet.
being with us and for all that context. Appreciate
You bet.
Let's take you out west tonight, where there is a new threat for the folks who are only beginning to start to think about recovery in Los Angeles, recovering from those Southern California wildfires. Now, landslides, even mudslides, are a concern for homes in the hills where these fires burned, especially down the road if and when it rains. Already we're seeing, look at this, the first home reported destroyed by a landslide after the fires. I mean, the house is just split in half, essentially. The LA sheriff is telling people today that some can start to go back to their homes, but for others who have been evacuated, it could be at least a week, if not longer. You've got firefighters working to contain fully the Eaton fire, that's the one out in Altadena, and the Palisades fire in the Pacific Palisades, even as they're also strapped to try to put out some of these smaller fires popping up, like this one near Santa Ana High School. Now, fortunately, that was stopped earlier today. Bill Cairns is here for us with the forecast, but I want to start with Ellison Barber, who was on the ground in Pasadena. So some good news, Ellison, that some people are starting to get back, some difficult news, right, and some potentially concerning news. Landslides, mudslides, yet another risk on top of what people are already dealing with, this massive displacement and this years-long rebuilding process.
Yeah, I mean, in some ways, it just feels like L.A. can't get a break, right? I mean, over 12,000 structures have been damaged or destroyed, primarily in the Palisades and Eaton fires, and it is going to take likely years for them to rebuild. But for now, the immediate concern is just how do we stabilize this area and make it safe enough for people to be able to go home and just assess what is left, if anything, of their homes. We have seen FEMA teams on the ground in the last week. We know the L.A. City Council approved 20 different fire-related actions today aimed at trying to expedite getting those federal funds to people in communities that need them the most. Los Angeles' Mayor Karen Bass, she issued an executive order on Monday that was aimed at expediting rebuilding efforts. This is what she's had to say about that journey.
The executive orders that were put in place are already being implemented. I am hoping that as the winds subside, that we can see a light at the end of the tunnel, and that individuals can get their life back on track to recover and to rebuild.
California Governor Gavin Newsom also issuing an executive order today aimed at trying to help with temporary housing, among other things. It will allow people to set up temporary structures, trailers, things like that, on areas while residents are being rebuilt. It's also extending bans on price gouging for temporary housing, hotels, motels, things like that. All of it much needed aid. But for a lot of people, it's not quite fast enough because they have literally lost everything. Hallie.
And here we are now, more than a week after these fires first started. Ellison, as you're talking to people now, is it that they're less shell-shocked and now, I think, maybe starting to understand the impact? Is it that they're still kind of stunned about what happened? Where are people's heads at this point?
You know, I think in a lot of ways it's all of the above, but the glimmer of hope in this massive mess has been neighbors and people, everyday people, stepping up to try and help each other and their communities. We have spent today at Octavia's Bookshelf. It's a local bookstore in Pasadena. The people who own it, who work here, most of them have grown up in Altadena. A lot of their families impacted by these fires. They have cleared out all of their books. They're making no money. They've restocked all of their shelves with supplies. People can come here, no ID, no questions asked, and they are giving them resources. Listen to some of what they told us.
This community is one with a lot of elders. It's one with folks with disabilities, but also people are in shock. They're spread out. They're far away. And so we want people to have access to these items, even if they're not able to come get them themselves.
You know, I asked them, Hallie, I was like, you are not making money right now. How are you going to sustain this? Because they're planning to do this in the weeks and months ahead. And they said their owner's philosophy has been, we will just figure it out. What we have to do is step up and help the community. And we're part of this community. So this is the only thing we can do right now is help everybody that we can. And they're doing that. They're literally driving supplies, everything you can think of, water to people's homes, to elderly people and people who are disabled, so that they can get whatever they need without any questions. Hallie.
It's been one of the incredible things to watch, Ellison, is people jumping in to help their neighbors, their friends, strangers in many cases, too. Ellison Barber, thank you. Let me get to Bill Cairns now. So no rain in the forecast anytime soon, but eventually they may see more wind, right?
Of course, and Hallie, it's not often I show you a completely blank weather map, but no red flag warnings. They've just been dropped. So Southern California, yes, for the first time, they can go on their phone or, like get their forecast. It doesn't say red flag warning, fire, alerts. So that's great. It's about first time in like 240 hours, almost 10 days. That's crazy. All right, so relative humidity is going up. That's why the fire danger is much lower. Winds are coming from the water. Still dry in the mountains, but that's going to start to moisten up a little bit. The winds are pretty light right now. They're not bad. That's why the containment numbers on the Eaton fire and also the Palisades fire are going to jump. You're going to see that going up exponentially as we head throughout the next couple of days. And hopefully it'll be 100% here soon. And then we can be done with those fires, at least enough to worry about them at all. So as we go throughout the night, tonight into tomorrow morning, winds continue pretty light. The flow is going to be kind of just neutral, not onshore or offshore. And that's going to last for a while, even as we go throughout tomorrow evening and right through the weekend, actually. I'm not concerned with the winds at all. So the next possible Santa Ana wind event, a huge area of high pressure is going to come in. This is going to be as we head through Monday into Tuesday. Now, high pressure like this drives the air from the west towards, the coast of California. And this is going over the mountains. When it goes over the mountains, that air dips and it accelerates. And that's what the Santa Ana winds are. Also, it's typically a warmer wind, too. So this is the wind forecast right now from what we call our European computer model, typically the most accurate. This is Monday into Tuesday, winds gusting 30 to 50. You see when we get up to the pink here, the magenta, that's like 50. So again, this would be a high wind event. And this likely wouldn't trigger, Hallie, like those particularly dangerous situations like we just had, but this likely would definitely be more red flag warnings.
Bill Cairns, it is a lot to watch. It is a lot to think about for people that are recovering there from those devastating fires. Bill, thanks for all you've been doing for us this week. I appreciate it. Let's bring it back here to Washington now, to the Capitol. We are just days away from the inauguration. And before that, you're seeing these confirmation hearings for key figures in President-elect Trump's cabinet, like the guy who could be in charge of some of the most sweeping legislation of Mr. Trump's second term. He's just wrapping up his turn to take questions from senators. There's Scott Bessent. He may not be a familiar face to you or a familiar name. That is likely to change if, in fact, he is confirmed as Treasury Secretary. He's a hedge fund manager now, and he faced a series of questions from Democrats on things like tariff plans that Mr. Trump has suggested, his pledge to lower costs, and then, of course, the minimum wage. Watch.
It's going to be paid for by workers and small businesses. So, your response?
Yes, Senator, I would respectfully disagree. And the history of tariffs and tariff theory, optimal tariff theory, does not support what you're saying.
If the president-elect were to propose a policy that you believe will increase prices, would you advise against it?
I would speak to President Trump about it. It is his decision.
So you don't think we should change the federal minimum wage of $7.25 an hour?
No, sir.
Okay.
You heard it there. Julie Sirkin is joining us now. Julie, talk about the biggest takeaways here from the potential next Treasury Secretary's testimony, considering one of the driving forces behind President-elect Trump's win in November was the way that people felt about the economy, issues like inflation, issues like the cost of living.
Absolutely. And at this point, Hallie, we don't have any indication that he won't be confirmed, because certainly he has at least the Republican votes needed, even maybe some Democrats open to his nomination. You touched on some of those important items, tariffs, trade. Of course, that is going to be a focus over the next few months. But when I'm looking at things from my post on Capitol Hill, it is really his answers on those tax cuts, extending Trump's signature law from 2017. That is something that Republicans are going to have to be dealing with in both chambers in the next couple of months. And it is no accident that he led in his opening statement by saying that extending those tax cuts is the single most important thing that they can do. Watch this.
Do not renew and extend, then we will be facing an economic calamity.
Look, an economic collapse, he said it's pass-fail if they don't extend these taxes. I think he's speaking to some of the Republicans that are a little bit hesitant to doing so. You got a split, fractured Republican conference here in the House. Certainly in the Senate, they're still haggling over strategy, one bill, two bills. The bottom line here is certainly the Trump tax cuts are a center point of his legacy in the first administration. Scott Bessent is somebody who's certainly going to be part of those conversations in trying to make that happen here, Hallie.
Julie Sirkin, live for us on the Hill. Julie, thank you very much. I'm sure we'll see you next week when those confirmation hearings pick back up. Coming up here on the show, why the FDA says Zyn pouches can hit store shelves across the country. Plus, the legal drama between Justin Baldoni and his co-star Blake Lively, now at a whole new level to the tune of $400 million. We'll explain. The American Cancer Society says in a new study, cancer rates are ticking up for younger women and going down for men. And it's happening across a lot of different age ranges. Look at this. For the first time, cancer rates in middle-aged women, which is considered 50 to 64, are now slightly higher than men. And women under 50 now have a much higher cancer rate than men the same age than they did 20 years ago. Basically, the overall cancer burden, as they call it, is now shifting from men to women. I want to bring in NBC News medical contributor Dr. Kavita Patel to break this down for us. Dr. Patel, it's good to see you. Although this is, I think to some people, feels like this could be an alarming story. Can you help us put it into context here? Why would this be happening?
Yeah, so Hallie, there are a number of things that are contributing to these younger rates. I'll start with the kind of most basic. We're seeing people at a younger age with more chronic conditions, obesity, heart disease, hypertension. That combined with also some potential role for environmental factors. We've talked, you and I, about the FDA banning things like food dyes, even though that hasn't been shown to directly link to cancer in humans. There's a question about how much of these environmental factors and things in our food that are artificial could contribute. Finally, something that's a really important thing to stress here is access. Women under 50 are missing many of the preventive screening measures that they should be undergoing because, Hallie, it gets confusing. Feels like the needle gets shifted. When do you get a mammogram? When should I get a pap smear? And that's because the science is changing. But that contributes, I think, overall to this pattern we're seeing, and it's not a good one. One we need to attack head on and do a little bit more research on how we can reverse these trends.
But so what's the advice that you would give to patients here, or people who are wondering, okay, what kind of test or screening or what should I go for when, et cetera, et cetera? What do people need to know?
Yeah. So look, I think it's incredibly confusing if you don't have like continuity of care, meaning a primary care doctor like me that you can talk to, because we need to kind of know, wait a minute, did Hallie get this screening when we recommended it at the age of 25? And I think that's where I would just say that we need to make sure, and we can see these cancer screening recommendations that we have by age range and everything for the large kind of driving causes of cancer, colon, breast, lung. Go to cancer.org, look at your age, plug it in, look for those recommendations. Don't miss them. Make sure you check up. And it starts even in your teens with an HPV vaccine. So look into all of the ways you can prevent cancer.
Dr. Patel, that's good advice. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Good to see you. Let's get you over to the 5 things our team thinks you should know about tonight. Number 1, Rudy Giuliani reaching a settlement with 2 Georgia poll workers in their nearly $150 million defamation suit against him. According to his defense attorney, Giuliani will get to keep his New York apartment, his Florida condo, his World Series rings, and his personal belongings. In a statement, the 2 poll workers called the settlement a major milestone. Number 2, a new development in that whole It Ends With Us legal saga. Justin Baldoni is now suing co-star Blake Lively and her husband, Ryan Reynolds, for $400 million. That's 2 weeks after Lively sued Baldoni and several others tied to the film, alleging harassment and a coordinated campaign to attack her reputation. Number 3, you can now get chicken noodle soup as a candy. Thanks to Progresso, they're calling it Soup Drops. So it's all the flavors of chicken noodle soup in a lozenge. That's a thing. Number 4, the FDA is now formally approving Zyn to be put up for sale. The agency says the pouches lower the risk of cancer and other serious health conditions compared with cigarettes, although critics say some of the flavors like chili, or chill, I guess it's called, cool, mint, citrus, they appeal to kids. Now, the FDA says in a statement, there is no safe tobacco product. They make that clear. Number 5, filmmaker David Lynch has died at the age of 78. He was known for movies like Blue Velvet and Mulholland Drive. His family confirmed his death on Facebook. Coming up, illegal alcohol killing dozens overseas. What's driving more people to buy counterfeit booze in Istanbul? Back to some breaking news on that SpaceX Starship that lost comms with SpaceX right after launch. SpaceX is now saying there was a rapid, unscheduled disassembly. And look at this video. We cannot confirm that that's breakup from the Starship, but it did happen right when the ship was confirmed lost on the live stream. I want to bring in Marissa Parra, who's joining us now. And we want to be careful, obviously, because, you know, still can't say 100% with certainty that that's what it is. Experts are saying it potentially looks like that, right? Talk us through sort of what has happened here. Tom joined us earlier and told us how SpaceX did confirm that they lost comms here and that there was this, you know, rapid disassembly, which is sort of
absolutely.
Yeah, aerospace speak for it came apart.
Right. So, Hallie, I'll start with what we know, then I'll get into the questions we have, and we'll kind of piece together what we can from this. So, SpaceX, as you mentioned, just put out the statement saying that there was a rapid, unscheduled disassembly during its ascent burn. We know from the live stream they had said that that happened about 8.5 minutes after launch. That's just before or around Starship engine cutoff. That is supposed to be around 5:45 p.m. That's according to the schedule that is publicly posted online. Now, these videos, and I want to bring up that video again because these are videos that were sent to my producer at 6:04 p.m. So in terms of what we do and do not know, SpaceX has not confirmed anything beyond that, particularly about re-entry. This is a big question that all of us have as we're getting these images, which are striking out of Turks and Caicos. That is from our local contact on the ground. You see those streaks across the sky. And it's not just this video because we're seeing it all over social media. If you put in Turks and Caicos on X, for instance, you will see many similar videos from different angles of exactly that. What we also know is that Starship, the 7th test flight, launched from Boca Chica, Texas. Turks and Caicos is about 1,600 miles east in the Atlantic Ocean. It was supposed to have a splashdown an hour after launch, Hallie, in the Indian Ocean. Again, as they confirmed, they lost the ship. And the next big question is going to be the SpaceX and FAA investigation that inevitably will start. Big question is, will there be a delay? What will they learn from this? This was a test flight. There were successes. That booster, you know, that booster landing there with the chopstick arms. But this, of course, is something that will not only be costly, but a lot of lessons will have to be learned from here, Hallie.
Marissa Parra, thank you very much for that. Appreciate it. NBC News covers hundreds of international stories every day. And because it can be tough to read or watch or listen to them all, our teams around the world have done it for you. Here's a look at what they're watching in a segment we call The Global. Out of Turkey, at least 30 people have been killed. Dozens are in the hospital after apparently drinking bootleg alcohol in Istanbul. Deaths from counterfeit alcohol has become, it seems, more frequent in that country. Alcohol prices have gone up because of higher inflation and government taxes. Officials arrested 6 people for selling the drinks and charged 2 others with murder. Out of South Africa, a rescue operation at an abandoned gold mine is coming to an end, with 87 miners dead and hundreds of survivors pulled from underground. Months ago, police in South Africa cut off supplies to miners working illegally, hoping to push them out and calling them criminals. A court ordered officials last week to launch a rescue operation for the miners. Police suspect that the ones who died did so from starvation and dehydration. And out of Vatican City, Pope Francis having a hard fall, according to Vatican officials. They say he hurt his arm, but he did not have any broken bones, and he's continuing with his agenda for the day. There he is there wearing a cloth sling in some of his meetings. This injury is the second in the past couple of weeks for the Pope. He bruised his face after a separate fall back in December. As we await news on that potentially groundbreaking ceasefire deal between Israel and Hamas in the next few days, still big questions about whether it will hold and what will happen to the ongoing investigations into conduct throughout the war. Israel and the United States have long accused Hamas of using civilians as human shields in the Gaza Strip. But there are also allegations Israeli fighters are using people as shields in battle. Danielle Hamamjian has the story, and we want to warn you, some of what you're about to watch is disturbing.
When the Israeli military ordered the evacuation of his Khan Yunis neighborhood last year, Mohammed Shabir says he and his family chose instead to stay put. We had no shelter to go to, he told our NBC News crew in Gaza. Then, on March 2nd, he says the IDF moved in, killing his father and sister and arresting him, 17 at the time, without giving him a reason. The next day, Shabir says Israeli soldiers used him as a human shield, forcing him to go from one apartment to another, looking for explosives, weapons, and Hamas fighters.
When I entered, there were wires on the walls, he says. I immediately realized that this apartment was booby-trapped, so I came out and told them. He says the IDF took him aside, blew up the apartment, and told him to keep going, or else they'd kill his mother and younger siblings. 20-year-old Mohammed Saad says the same orders were given to him, only he says he was forced to wear the IDF uniform and strap a camera to his head. Every time they see a wire, they say to us, "Cut it," he told NBC. They were monitoring us, drones flying above us. Tanks were outside, snipers, all of them watching. If you made the wrong move, they would kill you. After the last mission, he says he was shot through the back by Israeli soldiers and taken to an Israeli hospital. Israel, the United States, and other Western allies have long accused Hamas of hiding behind civilians and civilian infrastructure such as hospitals. The IDF has released videos and given media access to extensive tunnel networks, including those used to hold civilian hostages. NBC News hasn't been able to independently confirm how or when other tunnels were used and if they were being shielded by hospitals or schools. But over the course of this conflict, emerging allegations that Israeli soldiers themselves are also using people as human shields. Eyewitness accounts are rare, if any at all. Prior to searching an area, the Israeli military clears it of civilians. And while they're held by Israeli soldiers, the detainees are often blindfolded, not only to restrict their ability to move around, but so they're unable to see each other, the soldiers, and their weapons. NBC News hasn't been able to independently verify the allegations made by both Shabir and Saad, but their accounts are consistent with the testimonies of other Palestinian men we've spoken to, as well as reports by other news organizations. In a statement to NBC News, the IDF stated that the use of Gazan civilians as human shields or coercing them in any other way to participate in military operations is strictly prohibited under IDF regulations. The IDF also says it's unaware of the incident involving Mohammed Shabir, but is aware of Mohammed Saad's claims and told NBC News back in August the case was being examined by the relevant authorities. 4 months later, the IDF says the investigation is still ongoing. But they're not alone. In these videos obtained exclusively by Al Jazeera, you can see here a man who appears to be a detainee, stripped down to his underwear, leading soldiers through rubble. And another appears to have his blindfold removed, then, alone amid the ruins, a drone watching his every move. The IDF has not commented on these videos. It all comes as no surprise to Nadav Vyman.
Right, it's not a secret that the IDF can keep in Gaza.
Right? Vyman joined the IDF in the early 2000s as a sniper. Today, he runs an organization made up of former IDF soldiers who work to end the Israeli occupation. During his time in the military, Vyman says he was ordered to arrest Palestinian militants using what was then known as the neighbor procedure.
You come in the middle of the night, you take the neighbor, and you tell the neighbor, you knock on the door. You call him out. And if he's not answering, so you will open the door. Now, a lot of the times, that neighbor will get shot. And we were told as soldiers that it's better that he will get shot than us.
The Supreme Court of Israel later banned the practice in 2005, saying the procedure contradicts international law and that the civilian population is not to be used for the military needs of the occupying army. Fast forward to October 2023. Within weeks of the Israeli ground invasion in Gaza, Vyman says some Israeli soldiers reported to the organization what they were being ordered to do in the battlefield. And they came with what they claimed was photographic evidence. Vyman won't say just how many soldiers have turned to them, only that there are many.
They were ordered to use Palestinians as human shields. If you have soldiers from different units, different times of this year of fighting, and different areas in the Gaza Strip, northern Gaza Strip, center, south, saying the exact same thing and using the same phrasing, so obviously it's a widely used protocol by the IDF.
And when you say same phrasing, what exactly do you mean?
Cannot say.
For security reasons, Israeli military censorship laws won't allow him to answer that question publicly. That phrasing is known as the mosquito procedure, and the mosquito, or yatush in Hebrew, refers to the Palestinian being detained.
We heard from one of the soldiers that they asked their commanders, hey, what's going on over here? Why do I need to push a human being at gunpoint into a tunnel? And their officer told them that too many dogs in the IDF dog unit died.
So the Palestinian men are replacing animals, essentially.
Yeah, that's one of the soldiers said that. In other units, they were told, listen, do you want to be blown up for my ID or a Palestinian? And in other units, the officer told them, let me take care of war crimes, right? And you will execute commands.
Human rights groups say the use of Palestinian civilians as human shields is nothing new, nor is it restricted to war-torn Gaza.
We traveled 80 miles northeast of Gaza to the city of Jenin in the occupied West Bank. The man we're about to meet survived what the U.S. State Department described as shocking and unacceptable. Back in June, this video made headlines around the world. It shows Mujahid Abadi, a civilian who'd been shot in the arm and leg by IDF soldiers, strapped to the front of an Israeli jeep during a military raid. When we met Abadi 2 months later, he was confined to his bed, barely able to walk. No one was shooting at them, he told us, because they were using me as a human shield. The IDF called him a suspect in a counter-terrorism operation, but was later released. Doctors have told Abadi he'll likely never walk properly again. The IDF says the investigation it launched over the summer is still ongoing. A U.S. State Department spokesperson tells NBC News the reports of civilians being used as human shields are extremely disturbing, and such practices, if true, are completely unacceptable, adding that Israel has a responsibility to investigate credible allegations of violations whenever they arise. Also saying in October,
there can be no justification ever for the use of civilians as human shields.
International law is clear. Even if one warring side uses civilians to shield itself, the other side is still required to protect those civilians from disproportionate harm. The Gaza Health Ministry says to date, more than 46,000 people in Gaza have been killed.
For now, the focus is seeing the ceasefire through and implementing the terms of a very complex deal. But as Gaza opens up to the outside world for the first time since the war began, among the things investigators will be scrutinizing is the conduct of Israeli soldiers. Whether there'll be accountability remains to be seen. Hallie.
Danielle Hamamjian reporting. We'll be right back. To tonight's original now with in-depth reporting on a topic we've been watching. And tonight, it's the internet, or at least some of it, in mourning, so to speak, ahead of a potential TikTok ban in the United States, which is, by the way, as we talked about earlier in the show, still very much up in the air right now. But others are in a different stage of grief, the acceptance stage, with a whole bunch of Americans moving on. What does that mean? Moving on to what? Well, not Instagram, not X, but a different Chinese social media app, Red Note. And that turn of events means that U.S. and Chinese users are on the same platform. Here's Janice Mackey-Freyer.
Hey, all my new Chinese friends out there.
They're showing up in online droves.
Hello, Red Note. Oh my gosh, TikTok refugee here.
TikTok users looking for a new home and finding it here.
This might be better than TikTok.
On Xiaohongshu, or Little Red Book, the English name shortened to Red Note. It's become the most downloaded app in the U.S. Apple Store, with over 700,000 new users in the past week alone.
Ni hao. Did I do it? Did I get it right?
Part Chinese Instagram, part search engine, Xiaohongshu is one of China's most popular platforms.
I'm Becca, and I'm introducing myself as a lifestyle vlogger.
Becca Wong is a lifestyle vlogger.
Okay, I'm introducing you to the New Year's gift box.
She uses her account, Who's Becca, to create product reviews.
It's more elegant compared to Chinese version of TikTok.
Critics argue the law pushing TikTok toward extinction goes against free speech. The Supreme Court will have its say on that.
This morning, I opened up my little red book, and what the hell is going on?
For now, the Americans pivoting east has veteran users of the app leaning in.
You better learn yourself a little bit Chinese.
Memes of a terracotta warrior embracing Lady Liberty. Comments ranging from jokes about spies to offers of help with homework. Just don't forget to pay the cat tax that asks American users to introduce their cats.
I think this is a great moment for like a little bonding to happen.
This unexpected U.S.-China connection creating what some are daring to call a kind of digital diplomacy.
The vast majority of people on the Chinese mainland have never even talked to a foreigner. It really seems like a surreal moment.
Thank you, my Red Note brothers and sisters.
The migration is also, for some Americans, an act of protest, at least for Diego Abane from Pasadena.
I don't know what's going to happen to TikTok.
Who, like others, joined Xiaohongshu after hearing on TikTok about other options.
They're just all joining on this app instead of going to any like meta app like Instagram or like X or things like that, just to not support them and saying that it's not really the app that's the problem.
What sort of comments are you getting?
Literally anything from cat pictures to people just saying nice video.
All the new English language content, though, has censors on overdrive here. According to online job boards, they're hiring reviewers. Sensitive issues, and there are many here, are routinely blocked.
If you don't want to play by the rules, you can never post it out.
Already there's talk on the app that foreign accounts might be limited. The company that owns it has declined to comment.
Americans would literally rather learn Mandarin than use Instagram Reels.
That Chinese state media coverage of TikTok refugees seems positive, signals the government here may not crack down yet. Even the main Communist Party newspaper sounds delighted with the interaction.
People are really seeing this as a historic moment in cultural communications, and they're trying to remember it, that we can be friends.
Not all Chinese users are thrilled with Americans piling into their online community. The honeymoon may not last, but for now, it seems everyone is talking. Janice Mackey-Freyer, NBC News, Beijing.
Still ahead, Wendy Williams speaking for the first time about that guardianship, why she says she feels like she's in prison. Former TV host Wendy Williams today, for the first time, doing her first live interview about her guardianship since that dementia diagnosis last year. Williams calling into the Breakfast Club, telling host Charlamagne tha God that she is, quote, trapped in this guardianship and says she cannot leave the facility she's in. Listen.
I am not cognitively impaired, you know what I'm saying? No, but I feel like I am in prison.
NBC News has reached out to Williams' guardian, Sabrina Morrissey, for comment on Williams' claims on the radio show. Williams, remember, retired from her show in 2022, and her team says she was diagnosed with a nervous syndrome affecting her ability to communicate and a form of dementia that is usually associated with personality changes. Chloe Malas is joining us now. And Chloe, we should point out you worked on the Wendy Williams show earlier in your career. Talk us through what else Williams said today about where she is and what she's experiencing. Her niece was part of the conversation, and at one point she called it kind of a luxury prison, if you will.
Hey there, Hallie. Yeah, I mean, I didn't work on the show, but I was a guest on the show for about a decade, and I got to know Wendy Williams really well. And obviously, this is incredibly sad for everybody that's known her over the years. I mean, look, first of all, it comes as a shock that she did this interview this morning, but this is all coming amid her family launching a GoFundMe for her, trying to raise $50,000 for their legal fees because they claim that they've run out of money because they're trying to get Wendy out of this conservatorship that she's been under, this financial conservatorship, since 2022. She also said that she feels like she's a prisoner. She's not even sure that she's going to be able to get out of this facility where she is in New York to see her father for his birthday in a few weeks. I want you to take a listen to a little bit more of what she had to say.
I'm in this place where the people are in their 90s and their 80s and their 70s. There's something wrong with these people here on this floor. You understand what I'm saying?
Yes.
And I'm not saying something bad. I'm just saying that I am with these people. I am clearly not... Look, I have breakfast, lunch, and dinner right here on the bed. All right? I watch TV. I listen to radio. I look at the window. I talk on the phone.
I mean, look, this is a woman that at one point had one of the highest rated talk shows, a few years ago. I mean, she was the queen of daytime talk, like a modern day Oprah, if you will, but who really spilled the tea, right? And would shoot you straight. So obviously, though, when you listen to her talking, Hallie, she doesn't sound like this version of her that has been written about over the last year, especially since Lifetime put out their 4-part docuseries, Where is Wendy Williams, which really sparked concern. And you can see clips of it right there where she was, not seeming like the Wendy that we heard on the phone this morning on the Breakfast Club. And I do want to point out, though, that a lot of people are saying that there are parallels to Britney Spears and the Free Britney movement just a few years ago, Hallie.
Yeah, are you seeing fans, this sort of Free Wendy movement, draw those kinds of parallels, Chloe?
I am. And, obviously the public is so much more educated on conservatorships. And there is just this big push to free Wendy right now. And also her family is supporting that, which is different than what Britney Spears was going through at the time when she was under a conservatorship with her father. But it's going to be really interesting to see this play out over the coming weeks, Hallie, because going on the Breakfast Club, hearing Wendy in her own words, it is like that moment when I sat in the courtroom and heard Britney Spears in her own words.
Yeah. Chloe Melas, thank you so much for that. Appreciate it. Good to see you. That does it for us for this hour. We've got more coverage picking up right now.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.